March 1st will, of course, be an amazing fight as Gervonta Tank Davis defends his WBA Lightweight World Championship against Lamont Roach, the WBA Super Featherweight World Champion. And not only that, the card is actually pretty good. You have three title fights, obviously the Tank fight. You have Alberto Puello defending his WBC Super Lightweight belt against Sandor Martin, very great fight. You have Rayo Valenzuela defending his WBA Super Lightweight belt against Gary Antoine Russell. Very nice fights, especially in the Super Lightweight division. Who knows? After this fight, they could unify. You never know. And in the opener, you have the rising talent Yoenis Tejas taking on the former unified super welterweight champion Julian Williams. Now, of course, one thing to say, I do believe this will be super welterweight, and if so, not very good for Williams. He's been fighting at middleweight for the past three fights and hasn't been under the super welterweight limit since 2020 when he lost the belt. So obviously a lot to think about. But besides that, Julian J Rock Williams is 29-4 with one draw and 17 wins by way of knockout and 3 losses by way of knockout. Of course, his first loss was against Jermall Charlo for the IBF super welterweight belt. He then lost to Jason Rosario, losing his unified world titles after beating Jared Hurd. And then after losing to Rosario, he lost to Vladimir Hernandez split decision. And his latest loss was against Carlos Adames for the interim WBC middleweight world championship. So obviously, has only lost to champions. Of course, Carlos Adames should have defended the belt against Shiraz, but whatever, we don't talk about that. And before that, he has had some good wins. Now, of course, that's before that. Julian Williams is 34 and has been in quite a bit of wars, so it's kind of safe to assume he's on the older side of 34. But besides that, he is taking on Yoenis Tejas, 9-0, 7 wins by way of knockout. Of course, he is coming off of the 7th round stoppage win against Johan Gonzalez. Obviously, Gonzalez has only lost to the best or very good opposition. But if you look at his resume, very interesting. Before his late replacement fight with Sergio Garcia, where he replaced Ramos Jr., he hasn't fought a dude with a winning record. And then he beat Garcia by knockout, and then he's fought nothing but the best. So, I guess you could say when the lights were bright, Tejas shined brighter. Now, of course, he not only beat Sergio Garcia, who's lost to like Fundora and other good fighters at the time. He also beat Levan Navarro, 10th round stoppage victory. Joseph Jackson, the undefeated 19-0, unanimous decision. So obviously he has fought very good opposition. Now, of course, none of them have had the experience. Well, the closest would be Sergio Garcia, but besides that, no one has the experience of J Rock Williams, or you could say the championship pedigree. Now, of course, Julian Williams, assuming this will be a super welterweight, is most likely going to be drained in this fight. And obviously being stopped before and being 34, it's kind of safe to assume Tejas is most likely going to stop J Rock Williams, at least in the second half of the fight. Now, of course, Williams has experience, he has some type of power, and he has upsetted people before, so he's not completely out of it. He has a chance. He has the experience to really take advantage of Tejas only having 9 fights. But I don't think it's going to happen. I think he gives him a good fight. I think he kind of exposes some flaws in Tejas' fight style and overall puts up a good fight. But unfortunately, Williams, his best days are most likely behind him. So it's probably going to get stopped. No offense. But yeah, Tejas is most likely going to win this fight. He has a good style. He has a good style. Very explosive. Good combination. Some, you could say, good footwork. Not the best, obviously. Not like Lomachenko. He's not Tejaschenko. But it's just the youthfulness. It's just going to be the youthfulness of Tejas. Most likely get him the win against Williams. Especially because Williams seems to struggle against people with quick hands. Especially someone like Rosario back in that day. But, yeah, Tejas is most likely going to win. But besides that, the first championship fight, Alberto Puello versus Sandor Martin. Now, of course, Martin is 42-3, 15 wins by way of knockout. Of course, he is coming off of 2 back-to-back knockout wins against the 15-3-1 Arblin Kaba and Mohamed El Makauchi, 29-3. Very good wins. Of course, he also has Jose Felix and Mikey Garcia, majority decision win. Good win. And of course, he also beat K Prosperi, 14-1-1. And his only losses are against 15-1 Alexandre Lepelli back in 2013, and Anthony Yigit coming back from 2019 when he was undefeated at the time. Unanimous decision win. Now, of course, his latest loss was against Teofimo Lopez, split decision, where basically everyone thought Martin should have got the win. But what a weird thing to have if Martin beat Mikey Garcia and then Teofimo Lopez in a 3-fight span. That would be crazy. Maybe that's why they took the fight away from him, right? But, of course, he doesn't have a lot of power. But if you look at the people he did knock out, they are somewhat durable dudes. Sandor Martin knocked him out. Kaba, but he has had... at the time, he was half and half in terms of getting stopped. And, of course, Mohammed, that was his first time getting stopped out of his 4 losses. So, obviously, he has some pop. That's the thing. No one can deny Martin doesn't have pop. We saw it against Teofimo Lopez if you look at his face at the end of the fight. But then again, Teofimo Lopez has like an easily bruised face. I don't know. He looked bruised against Klage as well. So, I guess that's something to take in mind. But he's a very quick, crafty southpaw. But what's unfortunate for him is he's somewhat inactive. He hasn't fought for around a year and a half. That's something to definitely take in mind. But then again, there is some context. When you straight up should have beaten Teofimo Lopez and beat Mikey Garcia, who would really want to fight him? But then he got picked up by Top Rank, so obviously a big name in the sport. So safe to assume that's how he started getting the opportunity against Pollo. So, but besides that, Alberto Pollo is 23-0, 10 wins by way of knockout. He is a 2-time super lightweight world champion. Of course, he won the WBA belt. I do believe it was against Akhmedov, because obviously BoxRec stopped showing WBA fights, but whatever. But besides that, he was stripped due to doping, so obviously that's something to keep in mind. But he later beat Gary Antoine Russell for the interim WBC belt, which he was then elevated after Haney vacated. So obviously a somewhat legitimate champ, because he got stripped for doping, and then he was an email champion, so he's a 2-time, sometimes illegitimate champ. I don't know. I don't like calling people illegitimate champions, but if you were stripped for doping and you were elevated, it's kind of weird, right? But like I said, he beat Akhmedov. But Akhmedov, people thought he should have won the fight. Oh my God, Akhmedov is just the Deverenchenko of super lightweight. He should have beat Barrios. He should have beat Pollo. People thought he even should have beat Duarte. That dude is good, and he should have been champion by... Literally, he had like 2 attempts to be champion, and they robbed him twice. So that's a bit sad for Akhmedov, but hopefully he doesn't discourage him. He's a very good fighter, very fun to watch. But yeah, Pollo beat Gary Antoine Russell, who is obviously in the co-main event. Why is he getting a title shot? We'll talk about that later. But besides that, Martin and Pollo kind of have the same style, both like being on the back foot. Pollo is slightly faster, and you could say slightly more twitchy. But Martin is a lot more accurate and a lot more defensive, if that makes any sense. Pollo, don't get me wrong, he could counter while blocking. Martin, you could go in and try to punch him, and then you leave more hurt than he is. It's just weird. Like, you try, I'm going to go throw in a combo. You throw like 5 punches, and you miss all of them. Yet he hit you with like 3 punches in the middle of all of them. It's just like, okay, well then. I guess I'm getting my ass whooped then. He did it against Garcia. He did it against Mikey Garcia. He did it against Teofimo Lopez. The difference is Pollo is not a pressure fighter. He could be, but any slight pressure and Pollo's already on the back foot. He's like, nah, okay, you want to be in the front foot? I don't care. I'll be in the back foot then. But what's good is that Martin seems to be becoming a lot more aggressive, considering that he should have got the nod against Teofimo Lopez. So maybe that's something he's trying to correct. Like, okay, well, maybe I need to be a little bit more aggressive. But here's the thing. Martin is such a weird fighter. He has no power, but he could drop you and he could hurt you at any moment in the fight. It's so weird. He hurt Mikey Garcia, but you could say over the hump. Fair enough, right? But Mikey Garcia is a somewhat durable dude. You know, it's not like he gets hurt from any punches, right? He dropped Teofimo Lopez. Should have been twice. He's quick. He's defensive and he's super twitchy, and so is Puello. This is gonna be such an interesting matchup. It's just two twitchy fighters who like fighting on the back fight. But the thing I'm gonna say is simple. I think Martin beats him. I don't care. It's been a while since he last fought. He's just resting his bones. Obviously, everyone needs a good night's rest or year rest. But Martin is just, I think, it's just a slightly better version of Puello. Don't get me wrong. Puello is a lot more quick than Martin, but I think Martin just lands the better shots in the fight and beats Puello by decision. Obviously not by knockout, but you never know. Martin can hurt Puello. It's just super weird. You look at his knockout ratio. I don't even think it's 35%, and he can still hurt you. It's crazy, right? I'm a Martin fan, right? But Puello, it's a very close fight. It's a really just 50-50 fight. I don't know who's going to win, but I think Martin might edge out the fight and become champion. He should be champion by now. He should have been beat Teofimo Lopez, then fought Josh Taylor. Probably should have won that fight too. But yeah, give me Martin by decision. Very interesting fight. I don't know how the fight's gonna go. This fight can happen like 15 different ways, and they're all gonna be exciting, right? But besides that, the co-main event is Jose Valenzuela, aka Rayo, defending his WBA super lightweight championship against Gary Antoine Russell. Now, of course, Antoine Russell is 17-1, 17 wins by way of knockout. Of course, his loss was his last fight against Alberto Puello, where it kind of exposed a lot about Russell, that he can't cut off the ring properly. Obviously, it is Puello, so it's not like he was fighting just some random dude that has slightly above average footwork. No, he fought Puello, which is obviously a very good fighter. I did have Russell winning, but that's also because I just thought after the whole doping incident that he would like regress or something. I don't know. But besides that, he also beat some good people, obviously with some questionable stoppages, back to back against Victor Postal and Barthélemy. Obviously, Postal, it was a controversial stoppage because Postal hasn't been stopped at the time, and he could have gotten decision. Would he have lost anyways? Yes, but it was the whole just keeping his hasn't been stopped record, right? But besides that, the Barthélemy fight, he got hurt in that fight. He got hurt against Barthélemy. But then again, Barthélemy is another guy with little power, but he can hurt you. He just swings his punches full force, and it's just, damn. He hurt Jose Ramirez like in his last fight, so obviously he has pop. And then he stopped Kent Cruz 16-0-3, obviously, in the first round. That was no controversy, obviously. But besides that, he's taking on the now reigning champion, Jose Valenzuela, 14-2, 9 wins by way of knockout, 1 loss by way of knockout. Of course, he won his belt against Isaac Pitbull Cruz by split decision. Should not have been split decision. Valenzuela absolutely, unfortunately, whooped Cruz. And yeah, of course, it's 2 losses, 1 controversial, 1 not. The first one was against Edwin De Los Santos. He got stopped in the 3rd round. Unfortunately for him, was not that close of a fight. You know, he had his moments, but unfortunately, he just got destroyed in that fight. Luckily, he bounced back. Okay, not really bounced back. He lost to Chris Colbert by unanimous decision, which shouldn't have been a loss, people say anyways. But it didn't matter because he knocked out Chris Colbert in the 6th round in the rematch. And then he moved up and beat Pitbull Cruz for the title. So obviously a very weird set of fights for him, but he became champion, and that's really all that matters. Now, of course, Valenzuela obviously seems to be switching his style, obviously being a southpaw, being a lot more elusive than he normally would be before. And he will be somewhat of a similar fight against Russell as Russell had against Puello. Now, of course, Puello has a better footwork, a lot more twitchy. But Rayo has more power, which is weird because he only has a 64% knockout ratio, right? But he has power. Actually, a matter of fact, most of his unanimous decisions came early on in his career. So obviously he's setting into his power. That's all that matters, right? But since I don't want to make fun of him, but since how bad Russell was beaten against Puello, it's safe to assume he's gonna learn a lot. And he's gonna be putting a lot of new stuff into his training camp, obviously learning how to cut off the ring, I guess countering better, and overall learning how to deal with elusive fighters, which is a little bit bad for Rayo because, well, he's somewhat that type of fighter. He's not as good defensively, nor as twitchy or fast, but he has more power and he has better angles than Puello, which is something to look forward to, obviously, in the fight. But the way it's going to go is Russell obviously will improve tremendously in this fight. After losing to Puello, obviously, he's going to learn a lot. But unfortunately, so is Ryo. Ryo's learning a lot about his new style and will only get better from here, right? Which is why I'm picking Ryo Valenzuela by knockout against Antoine Russell. I think he stops him in the second half. I don't know, screw it. Let's say eighth round to 10th. I think that will be the stoppage because he's only getting better with his style, which I do believe. Ryo's already a better fighter than Russell, so when they're both improving, Ryo will probably still be the better fighter later on. But you never know. Russell may come back 10 times the fighter than he was before. You never know. Another somewhat close fight, but I got Ryo by stoppage. Now, of course, the main event of the evening. Gervonta Tank Davis will be taking on Lamont Roach for the WBA lightweight title. Now, of course, Lamont Roach is 25-1-1, 10 wins by way of knockout. Of course, he is coming off of the 8th round stoppage victory against Feargal McCrory, defending his WBA title for the first time. Of course, he won the title against Hector Luis Garcia by split decision. It was a very close fight. Both were going at it. I do believe Roach won. I think it was a right call. But, But besides that, his first loss was against Jamel Herring, 20-2 for the WBO Super Featherweight World Championship. So obviously he lost, but he still became champion. Because he has beaten some other people like Alberto Mercado, Angel Rodriguez, and some other fighters, right? So obviously he is known for his defensive skills, somewhat good footwork. But he is going up against Gervonta Tank Davis, 30-0, 28 wins by way of knockout. A very big power puncher. Of course, he is coming off of the 8th round stoppage victory of Frank Martin. But before that, he has fought 4 undefeated opponents back-to-back. Should have been actually 6 because Isaac Cruz replaced Rolando Romero, who was undefeated at the time. And we all saw how that fight ended. So there should have been 6 undefeated opponents back-to-back. A lot of backs. But he's fought a lot of people now. Of course, there's still a lot of criticism for his resume. A lot of them are either not good at all, late replacements, I guess you could say, haven't achieved anything, and the ones that are good have been weight trained, right? So a lot of criticism on his fights, but the one thing you can't lie about is that he's an exciting fighter. People come to watch him, right? This fight seems to be getting a lot of buzz, a lot more buzz than the Frank Martin fight. Makes sense since Roach seems to be doing a lot of promoting himself, so good to see. But what's bad is, unfortunately, with these fights, you're not really seeing, wow, I wonder who's going to win this fight. No, it's when is Tank going to knock him out? Because Lamont Roach is good for a good fighter, but he has no power. He is a super featherweight. He's coming up with already low power. He has good footwork, don't get me wrong, but with added weight, it's not going to last him the entire fight. And his defensive skill, once again, is going to fade later on, which will give Tank a lot of openings, and I don't know. Lamont Roach, anything can happen. Bigger upsets have happened in the sport of boxing. That's why people love it. But, they're called upsets for a reason. They don't really happen a lot, which is why I'm picking Tank by knockout, which isn't really a controversial pick against Roach. I think it's going to be in the 10th round, I think. I don't know. It's going to be a fun fight. Lamont Roach, although he doesn't have power, he is somewhat of an exciting fighter. Good skills, good fundamentals. It's just, if we're talking about Tank, he's moving up to fight Tank, right? It's not like, it's just Tank style, lose the first couple of rounds and knock the other guy out, right? Which, it's exciting. Don't get me wrong. It's an exciting fight. People like watching Tank. But people want to watch unification fights as well. They want to see him against the other champions. Now, of course, the whole thing is, the other champions are ducking, but oh no, actually Tank that's ducking. It's a lot of stuff, right? But I'm still gonna tune in. It's just it's not really I wonder who's gonna win. It's just what round should I bet on that he knocks him out, right? But Lamont Roach, good fighter. Probably if he doesn't lose too much from this fight, he could do a lot of damage still at super featherweight with unification fights, right? But in this fight, no, I don't think so. Tank by knockout 10th round. And once again, not a controversial statement. But yeah, Tank has good power, good countering ability. He has somewhat good footwork himself. and a lot of power. So yeah, once again, I got Yoenis Tejas knocking out J. Rock Williams, Sandro Martin beating Alberto Puello by decision. Jose Valenzuela will stop Gary Antoine Russell, and Gervonta Tank Davis knocking out Lamont Roach. But anyways, what are your opinions? Leave them down below, and I hope to catch you in the next one.